Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and for those of you who've been to my channel, you know when I get a package like this, you know where it comes from. Marco Benedetti. Now I've been sitting on this package probably for a few months, maybe 2 months, and I haven't been at liberty to unveil it yet. But I've been told that Marco will be announcing it on Monday night. Now today is Saturday. So I'm going to do the video today, and I will release it the second I know I can. However, before I get to this, I want to make a few comments on previous videos and previous comments that were made under some of my videos. I did a video titled, I Know I'm Being Petty, or I admit I'm being petty. And I got a little bit of a tongue lashing, minor, from somebody who suggested I was being petty regarding the people who live perpendicular to our street. It's another street, the other side of the street from our street. But we have to see it every time we pull out of our street. And it's a house that's just like total you-know-who propaganda. Every square foot of that property has a you-know-who sign, a poster, an insult to libtards. You name it, it's on that property. And the person indicated that I was being petty and to be careful what I wish for. Well, I have to say this. I can't be more petty than they are, the house, the people who live in that house. And what would be worse than them? Somebody who him, if he moved in? Because every square inch of that property is his propaganda. So there isn't anybody who's going to be waving a freakier flag than the ones they've already had. Now, the happy news is they're gone. They are gone. No trace, hide nor hair, they're gone. And the property was sold. So it's no longer pending or anything like that. So, and it's in a residential district. Residential zoning. There's a wildlife preserve in that right behind their property. So it's not like there's going to be any kind of thing put there that would be undesirable, to the community or anything like that, like a building like for business it's not going to be like that. So it'll just be another neighbor, and we got rid of that one, which was a blight on this area, on this community. And be careful what you wish for. I can't imagine that they would be worse. We'll see. Fingers crossed that it's not. I'll light a candle that they're not going to be worse, but they had to go. They had to go. I never did a spell or anything for them to leave. Never did. Never did. And I only did a reading on them once they were leaving. Once they made their exit, that they were leaving. That's when I did my reading. So I never wished it or on them or anything like that. I just tolerated it. Oh, another comment that I want to make is the horrendous shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I did a reading on that. I did video it, but I decided not to release it. One of the things, when I did the video, it was just immediately after hearing that there was a shooting, and I was given the person's name. They said the person's name. They didn't say anything about any gender transitioning or anything like that. They just said the person's name. So when I did the video, I said, I know that the person's name was, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to give that person any time. But I said that it sounded like a gender neutral kind of name, so I couldn't rightly tell if it was a man or a woman. But the first card out in the spread was the Knight of Swords. So that gave me the clue, oh, maybe it's a man, So then from that point on, I addressed the individual as a man. And some really interesting things came out in that read. Particularly now knowing what we do know, that there was a person who was dissatisfied with his birth gender and was transitioning, but now was even dissatisfied with transitioning. If you read the manifesto or whatever it is that he had, the individual had, he regretted that too. So he just loathed himself. And I didn't know any of this when I did the read. And one aspect of the read was, why did this person do what he did? And I prefaced it that there is no explanation that's good enough. So any explanation there might be would never be good enough. But it came up like that he hated himself. He hated himself. And there seemed to be something going on with his mom, because there was a triangular with the Knight of Swords, the Page of Swords, and then the Queen of Swords, and it was in a triangle configuration. If you can visualize my signature spread, the first card in the first row, the third card in the first row, and then the center of the core 9. That's where it was formed. And in between there was instability of well-being. So it seemed like there was a connection to the mom or something like that. And then the church was like the Pope was right next to the mother, and the mother and the Pope were looking at each other, whereas the knight was going in the opposite. It was very interesting. I used the Bordoni. I think I used the Bordoni deck. So it was like the mother is in cahoots, or like was in close with the church, but he wasn't. It was such an interesting read. The reason I'm not presenting it, maybe it'll be a bonus somewhere, is because the other question I asked was, how do we notice these things? You know, what are the clues? What are the signs that we can see in somebody who's going to do something horrific? In his case, what were the signs that were out there that we all missed? And it did, because of the Pope and the way that it looked at, for me, it read like, religious pressure to be one way or another or something like that. That's how I picked up on it. Was, like religious pressure causing somebody to have a certain amount of self-loathing. And the ultimate understanding I got for what clues there were for somebody that might have picked up on him being dangerous was looking at somebody who seemed to really hate himself or herself. And people really hate themselves. But the thing about it is, he seemed to hate children. He hated children. He specifically, I think, says in his written stuff that he hated children. Anyway, I just thought I'd comment on that, and hope gun laws change. It has to be a thing. It has to be. And anybody who says it doesn't have to be a thing, I think you're wrong. And it's ironic because the Second Amendment says, suggests that we have to be armed in order to protect ourselves from tyranny and fascism and the things that are actually coming down our pike. So maybe it would behoove the government to have tougher gun laws, because more and more of us who have never had guns before might have them now, or are thinking about it, for the reason of protecting ourselves from the government. Just putting it out there. Might be a good reason for the government to reconsider its stance. Okay, we're 9 minutes in. I've sustained your suspense long enough. The Gassmann. Now, there are a few Gassmanns out there. I know it myself. I have at least 3. This is at least my 3rd Gassmann. And I have decks that were based on Gassmann, like the Tarot Classic by Stuart Kaplan back in the 70s. I'm sure that was based on the Gassmann. But this one is by Marco Benedetti, so you know it's spectacular. So let's flip the camera and get right to it. And you know how I roll. The next couple of videos may be a comparison of this Gassmann to 1 or 2 other Gassmanns. identifies it as a Swiss deck, 1890, restored by hand or by Marco Benedetti. In the characteristic telescopic box, extremely sturdy, reflective of the backs, has the nice tuck here for your thumb and your forefinger, and then also here to make it easy to, so his boxes are great. I don't mention that often enough, but they are great. And of course, the paper is stellar. It's a chunky deck, so let me take some out. Yeah, it's going to be a good shuffler, but I don't want to get them out of order. And I love the pink. That is decidedly pink. I don't want to I got this out of order. That's a 2. Oh, okay, good. All right, so this is the order that it was received in, so I haven't, done anything to it. So here we have La Batelier. The Papesse. The Roman numeral is looks like a bit of a square, but that's probably how it was reproduced. A bit of a historic facsimile, I'm thinking. There are no explanations with Marco's decks when they come out, other than the date, usually. I think I have the Yves Renaud, and I might have two others, or maybe 3 others. So it will be interesting to compare, to see if the colors are different, whatever's different. So let's look at the texture of the cards. You can see the vertical ribbing. I'm not a card maker, so I don't know what that's called. It's on one side, not the other. The back is smooth. And you can see the geometrics, in the TDM. You could see how maybe some card maker might have thought this was a scale at some point. And, you can see how things could get confusing, in other words. However, here, the scales are there. And this is just a random geometric shape in the clothing. In some TDM decks, I perceive this as being the edge of the cloak, In some, it's a walking cane. So it's hard to know where an optical illusion is, or how somebody perceived this as a cane when it might have been the edge of a cloak, or how somebody perceived it as the edge of a cloak when it really was a cane. So that's why I love looking at decks. It's endlessly fascinating. So here, could we see a suggestion of water? I know in the Matra Nua, we do have water underneath. Let me pull it. Now I recognize that the Matra Nua is a contemporary deck, created today based on historic decks. But it seems clear, that Valentina De Luca picked up on the suggestion of water at some point. And there are some decks, including the Gassmann, that do give it a suggestion of water. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what they were getting at, but I could see that's what that could be. So it's interesting to see it in a representation of a modern tarot creator who is very much aware of historic tarot decks. And here we have the Swiss-style soldier in the Swiss garb facing to the side like a profile view. I don't know if this is blood, sweat, and tears or what those are. But you see, the treatment of water is the same here, right? The treatment of water is the same. Let's pull that back out. It's the same. And, okay, somebody could say, well, that's not water, that's the side of a bank. But the crustacean, we associate crustaceans with water. We associate the moon with water. So I'm thinking that's water. So maybe that was a detail of something that was misunderstood and put in the Wheel of Fortune or not. Maybe I'm just spending too much time thinking about it. But that's why I like looking at so many decks, because you pick up clues, or you pick up things to take down another rabbit hole. So we have a couple. I don't know if they're of the same gender or not, because their telling parts are covered and they're both young enough that maybe it's not real clear. I don't know that either of them is mature enough to be able to tell. Maybe this is feminine. I don't know. We have Judgment. So the Triumph Order is in keeping with what we're accustomed to seeing in TDM, with a few differences in the feminine form here. So let's see what the Ace of Cups looks like, because the Ace of Cups of the Swiss suits always are beautiful. And here we see the kind of ribbing that we see in, let me see if I can find a chalice. Here, this one's better because it's got 3, right? We have this almost looks like, a nod to the Swiss decks in the style of the chalice. That was the Matronua also. And you'll see more what I mean when we get to the Ace. So I don't know if you guys want to see a comparison. I love the Two of Cups. It's always so fun. The Two of Cups of the Swiss decks, particularly the Gassmann, are just so much fun. The Burdell is the same. There it is, right? I love this Ace of Cups. I love it. So I don't know if you guys really want to see a side-by-side comparison of the Gassmann to other Gassmanns. I think we've seen so many. It's a very popular deck, for good reason. Of course, there's a good quality reproduction, quality paper, quality inks. I love the Swiss batons. Oh, I love them. It's just so refined. And that looks like, I love the Ace of Batons in the Swiss deck, particularly in this one. It's like bountiful opportunity of the earth food, drink, eat. There's no drink in here, but it's just like we have food, I guess. It's a suggestion that something you could eat, an opportunity, a gift, just nourishment of the soul or the spirit or the body. Although I don't associate batons with the body necessarily. Maybe a body of a group of people as a body in that regard, but I see coins more in keeping with like health and well-being. Obviously, the earth, domestic. And look at that 4. Oh, I love it. So let's do some shuffling. Now, but mind you, it's a thick deck, and with thick decks, what I tend to do, because I guess I'm starting to have arthritis in my hands, and I could try, let me see, I can try to do, which way is up? Okay, this is up. I can try to do a shuffle, but it's a little hard on my hands anymore to have a long span. It's a little tough. Oh, look at that. But it can be done easily. Actually, I was able to do it without too much trouble. And I have a camera and a tripod in front of myself, so I'm not actually looking at the cards as I shuffle them. I'm not looking at the cards. I'm just seeing the cards through the lens, which is why sometimes I make mistakes. I don't always see because I'm looking through the lens to see what I'm doing. So you can see, oh, that was a bad shuffle, but that wasn't on the deck, it was on me. So let me go, let's do a read with these since I shuffled them. I might as well go into a read. I'll be right back. Alrighty, and I'm just going to do a couple three card reads. Sometimes less is more. For this one particularly, I'm just doing a 3-card read. Not that I watch. I don't look for him on the news. I don't look for who on the news. I completely don't. I get my news as it's digested by people that I trust. And it's been reported as of today, which I think is Saturday morning, excuse me. I think it's been 5 days since he's been seen in the flesh, photographic or video form, which is very unusual for him, which means he hasn't been golfing for 5 days. Because had he been golfing, there would have been a photograph of that. And he has had some rants on his social platform. So he has had some rants, which may or may not have come from him, but I guess they were inarticulate enough to be attributed to him. So my question is, in 3 cards with a quint, what's the reason? What's the reason for his absence, his image being absent for 5 days? 2, 4, 6, 7. Suit of coins I equate with health and well-being. So we start out with a 7. Goes down to a 4. Could be a decline in health or well-being. And then we have the card of the moon. Could be moodiness, could be mental health, could be secrets that are being kept regarding his health. And I'm a lunatic when it comes to shuffling a deck. I shuffle like a lunatic. Okay, so we have 7. I got pinky out. 7 plus 4 plus 18. Gives us 29, minus 22. We get 7. Wow. This is very interesting. It gives us 7. And why do I say it's interesting? Because when I was handling and mixing the cards, meditating, when I did my 7th shuffle of the riffle shuffles, the cards went flying all over the place. And I made a mental note in my head, and I said, I bet you anything the Chariot card is going to pop up in that spread. I knew it. And here it is. Now, what the Chariot has to do with anything, I don't know. But we'll see. We'll put it together in a second. Let me find the card. So I probably won't do a comparison with to other Gassmans unless you guys ask me. If more than 2 people ask me for comparison between this and the Yves Renaud, and there is another one, I think by Beaumont, or I'm not sure, I can't remember off the top of my head who the other Gassman I have is by. I'll do a search and see who I have them by, but if more than 2 of you ask me to do it, I'll do it. Otherwise, I probably won't. Okay, so what does the Chariot suggest? I think I've already explained, like maybe, health and well-being is on the decline. There's a card of, it could be mental health, could be that, that we're being kept in the dark about the decline of his health, that kind of thing, in which the Chariot being driven, moving forward, advancing. Typically, I would see it as a card of success, moving forward, but in the context of the question, maybe his health condition is advancing. So it could have to do with his health and well-being. Could be that his people are trying to advance a narrative, to turn this into a positive spin. It could be that they're working on making it a positive spin. That might be reading a little bit too much into this. I'll tell you what, this is a card of rejoice. I'm just saying, every single time I pull this card, I always comment on how fun it is. I think I just did it recently with the Burdell, right? When I did the Bling Burdell, right? That compared Burdell, 2 Burdell decks together, right? And I have another Burdell. I have a Yves Renaud Burdell as well, which I didn't show. I'm not sure which one I don't know. Which one did I show? I'm not sure if I compared the Yves Renaud or the mass-produced one by Los Scarabeo or U.S. Game System. I'm not sure which one I compared to the blingy one. But every time I show a Swiss deck and it's got this, I'm always commenting on joy, right? Celebration. So was this card, did it pop up to show a decline in his health and at the same time, joy? I don't know. I'm just saying. Very interesting. I like to do reads in groups of 3 at least. So I'll come up with another few questions to use with this wonderful deck. I'll be right back. I'll tell you too, if you have a choice of a few Gassmann decks or any decks, and Marco makes one, I'll tell you what, if all things seem to be equal, one of the things that might sell you on it is the shuffling. Because the shuffling, and I'm doing this in front of, behind a camera, I'm not looking at my cards, I'm looking at the image of my cards, right? But they shuffle so nicely. Anyway, okay. And you know what, another thing, I love that it's pink. And when you think, I wonder if pink was a thing with, the Swiss. We have a pink back on the Jacob Jürger, and that was Swiss too, right? So we have the pretty pink. That's interesting to me, that they're both, the 2 decks that I know that have pink backs, that are historic tarot decks, are both Swiss. My question as I was handling and mixing the cards prior to returning was the perpetrator who did his wicked deed in Minneapolis, Minnesota. One of the things he wrote was that he hated children. I want to understand why. Why would he hate children? Do 3 cards plus the quint. Why? Why hate children? I mean, I understand kids could be annoying on an airplane, if you have like a 4-hour flight and the kid's kicking your chair. But you know what? I've been on really long airplane flights, and I've had adults doing that to me. So people are annoying. What can I say? It's not enough of a reason. Anyway, why? I'm just saying. We all sometimes have our limit with children, you know, temper tantrums and stuff like that. But why hate? What caused this particular individual to hate children? Well, this could be describing him. I'm addressing him as him, but the news is calling him unless they're doing somebody's bidding. But every time I've done a reading on him, the spread began with a him card. In both cases, a 9. The first one was, both cases, a knight, rather. The first spread that I referenced in the beginning of this video was the Knight of Swords, which is a person with a weapon. Here we have another person with a weapon, who is, to me, the way I interpret the cards, the Knight of Batons can be charismatic, but he's also, in my view, the least reliable. If it were to pop up in a spread for somebody regarding a romance, I would, if it was a male person, I'd say, well, maybe you're not really mature enough to go through this yet, or that your love interest, you know, isn't a reliable, good source, you know, a good match. So there's that. Could it just be his own, you know, immaturity? Let's see what he's looking at. What's the next card? Wisdom, age, the Hermit. Let's see what the next card is. The Page. Now the Page of Swords showed up in the original read I did regarding this guy. Interesting. So the Quint card, easily, because I don't add value to the court cards, would be the Hermit. Let me pull a Hermit from another deck. I'll be right back. Alrighty, so here I'm comparing it to a Gassmann by Yves Renaud. And we see that the palette, we're doing a little comparison between the two decks, just with this one card. The palette of the Renaud is brighter, so we have that. So because there's such a big difference in the color of the cards, I don't know if the original that came down is just, you know, black line. I'm not really sure. We do very often. Okay. So here is the explanation. The bright colors of this edition are the result of the variety of original editions that followed each other through time. So there must be many copies. We see the date on here is 1840. We see the date here is 1890 was it? 1890. So this card was this deck was in circulation for a long time. So there are many varieties. Okay. Back to the thing. So we have a youth who's impetuous, as I see it, looking at authority, maybe. We have one even younger turning his back to authority, which is interesting. So it just seems like it describes him maybe as rebellious or going against, you know, traditional wisdom. But why would he hate children? Maybe he feels like his childhood was taken from him. I don't know. I guess there's no real good reason. There's no reason. It's an irrational reason. And let me come up with one more question for the cards. All right. And several weeks ago, I did a read on Lily and Jack, the little children from Nova Scotia who seem to have disappeared. I did a signature spread on that, and the gist of the spread, now this was going back several weeks. I think the conclusion I came to, interpreting the cards, was that they became frightened, or there was a fight, or there was something that scared them, and they took off. Now, what happened to them after they took off? the cards didn't address. I was asking, what their disappearance was about. So it seemed like it was about them leaving because they were frightened. And I'd just like to check in on that, if there's anything further that the universe is willing to share regarding what happened to them beyond them leaving the property. I'm only doing 3 cards plus a quint. So we have 7 swords. Perhaps a breakthrough in communication. Perhaps something will be revealed. This fella pops up a lot. Impetuous, unreliable, could be dangerous. He's paired with a weapon. He's on a horse, which at the time was a vehicle. And children. Could be the children. It could have been something that happened as a result of an opportunity. Somebody saw an opportunity with the children. Oh, man. Okay, let's do the quint. We have 7. That's it. Whoa, that's it. We have 7. And again, the Chariot is a quint card. Isn't that interesting? I say that the signature spread is my, something I developed, which of course it is. But, I think I developed 3 in a quint also. I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen anyone do 3 in a quint before. So I might have invented that one too. I don't know. Now the Chariot being the end, doesn't it kind of suggest was somebody in a car? Maybe they were encountered by someone in a car. I mean, it's being spelt out so plainly. My gosh, it's just sometimes these cards are crazy. How you get such a clear read. It could be an opportunity somebody had an opportunity. Maybe it's somebody in a car. I think the children left. I don't know why. The read that I gave suggested that they were frightened and they went outside. So they were frightened and they went outside. Maybe they wandered. It seems like they encountered somebody, right? In a mode of transportation, they encountered someone that I describe as being not the most reliable individual. And this person was going in the direction of, could be violence, could be seen as violence, an escalation, piercing, going through. It could also suggest that we'll get news. Maybe there will be news forthcoming. It could be doing double duty. It could mean more than one thing at the same time. And then this, of course, reinforces the concept that there was somebody in a vehicle or somebody in a mode of transportation. Oh, my goodness. I hope we get news soon for those, regarding those children. I hope, and I hope... I think the stepfather, I guess we can call him a stepfather. He isn't the biological father, and he wasn't legally married to the woman. So he might not have actually been, he legally would not be considered a stepfather, but I don't know what else to call the man. Seems to think that his partner took them or arranged for them to go in hiding. I think that's the latest on what he thinks, but so I'm not doing my maniacal shuffling. I'm not. I'm just doing a handful of shuffles now. It's a related question to the last question, and I think we have at least 7 overhand, and I'm not gonna maniacally shuffle these for that. I'm just going to ask, are they okay? Oof, are they okay? Interesting, we have 3 cards from the higher order, the Triumph order. That's really something. Let's add them up, see what we get. We have 8, 16, 14. And the Quint card is 16. Let me pull it. Okay, so you see that the Quint card is already a card in play. The question was, are the children okay? And we have, 3 cards of the higher order. The laws involved. Could be something, when you see the Tower in the context of this question, are the children are okay? There's something catastrophic, right? There's something very highly disruptive, damaging. And then we have the Temperance card, the detoxification, or could be like I'm seeing it as like ritualistic or cleansing. And then we have for the Quint, the Tower. So whatever condition they're in, I think this ordeal has not been for the good. Those poor little souls. I hope they're found really soon, and that the law gets a handle on it. And until next time, friends, peace. Stay. Oh, let's do something cheery. Come on now, we can't end it like this. Let's do something cheery. Oh, I wanted to mention the backs of the Isranode are quite different. It could be that the original backs were different too. These decks are 50 years apart, so certainly the backs could have changed. Let's do something fun. All right, let's clear the deck. I'll do this maniacally so I clear the deck. We're going to do one more that's a fun read. Okay, this one's not necessarily fun, but it's interesting. Now, I had recalled a memory last night or yesterday of something that happened when I was probably about maybe 17 years old, 16, 17. I was young. I wasn't in college yet. And my parents took us down the shore. I think they were... No, I was older than that, because my parents bought a house in Cape May when the summer I turned 21. And this was a summer when my parents were going down the shore, in Jersey we say shore, to look to purchase a home. They wanted a second home. And so they were looking in the Cape May, they ended up buying a home in Cape May, but they were looking in the Cape May Wildwood area. And I think on this particular trip, we went to Wildwood, and so they were doing a few house visits. So we got a room, we got a hotel room in Wildwood. And while we were there, sitting by the pool, I was not like I am now. Obviously, I was actually rather shapely, and I was pretty, and I attracted the attention of 2 men who were older. So maybe I was pushing 20. So maybe I was a little older than I thought. At any rate, I was, sitting by the pool, and these 2 fellas started chatting me up. And of course, my father, radar, and he didn't care for that. And they convinced me to hang out with them, and I I was like, sure, okay, you know, and I guess I kind of liked having some attention, you know. And somehow they convinced me to go into their apartment or their hotel room. Talk about a lack of judgment. So I acquiesced. I think they said, you know, they asked me if I, you know, I don't know what they asked me, to be honest with you, but I wonder if I don't know what they asked. I don't know how they got me to agree to go into their room. But I told my brother, I had two brothers, and I told one of my brothers, I said, Bill, this is where I'm going to be, you know, in case anything happens, I'm going to be with them, right? So my brother was like, you better not let Dad know. I was like, yeah, no, I'll be discreet. So I wasn't going to do anything. I just went into their room. But there was something weird. One of the guys was in bed. He was in bed. Like by the time, like when I matched up with I think they said come to our room later or whatever. When I went into the room, one of them was in bed, and the other one was up and dressed. And I felt really uncomfortable because the one guy was in bed. I was like, this is strange. And I kind of definitely didn't feel right. And, I'm remembering. I went into their room because they said, you want to go later to the boardwalk with us? And I got permission I did get permission from my father. However, instead of meeting them by the pool or wherever, they said, the guy asked if I would go back into his room briefly, which is a ploy that's been used on me before later in life when I should have known better. But anyway, going back to this account. So the one guy was in bed, and then the other guy was dressed and ready to go. So we went to the boardwalk, and we just, we were on the boardwalk for about an hour, and then he returned me back to the hotel, and everything was fine. Nothing happened to me. There was nothing bad that happened. But I always felt like, what was that about? Like, I guess I'm naive still, because I always wondered, like, what was the guy doing in bed? Like, so I want to see what was going on there, if the guy that ended up taking me to the boardwalk for an hour, just kind of got stuck with the little girl and had to take her to the boardwalk because her father would kill them if he didn't, you know what I mean? I kind of want to see, like, what was on the agenda of those two young men who are now clearly in their 70s, if they're alive at all. That'd be interesting to see this. Alrighty, so what was on their minds with me, those two men? Were they really just wanting to hang out with not an adult girl? I mean, I was older than 18. I don't know how old I was, but I know my parents were looking for the home. They purchased a home when I turned 21, and they might have looked for a year or two. So I was probably 20-ish. Okay, what was on their agenda? Judgment. No, Ace of Cups. 5 of Cups. 21 and 5 is 26. I'll do it on Pinky just to make sure. Sometimes my math for even simple equations is off. Minus 22 is the Emperor. Well, I think once they realized there was my father who was definitely watching. I think they were acutely aware of the old man, of my dad. Let's see. So I think they just bit off more than they could chew. I think they thought they could have a little thing with I don't know what they thought if the both of them would. I don't know. I don't know what they thought, the two of them. And one of them was in bed. I don't know what. That was creepy when I showed up, and I went there and he was in bed. I was like, oh, why is he in bed? And I got the feeling to avert my eyes also. I do remember, like, deliberately not looking too closely to him under the covers. I remember feeling like there was something going on that I didn't want to see, and I completely averted my eyes.
But I think obviously, I think I dodged a bullet. They were aware of the father, I think they were definitely aware of my old man watching. So they thought there was an opportunity that went awry because of him. And I'm not sure what this means in the context. I think the judgment card, they were, I think these two spell out that they saw an opportunity initially and they thought, or maybe this too, they saw an opportunity initially, but then they realized, yeah, not so fast. And then the one guy ended up just taking me to the boardwalk because he was being watched. They were being watched. I think they were probably harmless. It's just that they were looking to have a little fun with a 20-year-old girl. Maybe they were looking to cross the line. Maybe it was going to be something it shouldn't have been. But they were acutely aware of this figure. I'm curious about this card, though, the Judgment card. An announcement, accountability. Well, they were being held accountable. Okay, they knew they would be held accountable. They knew they would be, okay, that makes sense. They knew they would be held accountable. They thought maybe they would do something. It was an opportunity for some fun on their part, kind of like where the boys are, kind of like where the boys are. It was almost like that kind of thing, to be honest. Oh, thank you, Dad. It looks like you saved my neck from something I wouldn't have been too happy about. Okay, well, that's that. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, be brave. If you've hung out with me for 51 minutes and 47 seconds, please give me a thumbs up. Please give me a subscription. Please share me because it means a lot. I'm at like $99.08, and it's going to take me a week to earn, the less than 10 cents I need to get $100 check. So whatever you could do for me, folks, that would be great. Until next time, peace, stay well, be kind, be brave.